Oh, yes.
Listen! Break! Break! Jump! Pray, stand at ease.
As representatives of this borough of Basingstoke and Deane, we stand now in a very long tradition on an Armed Forces Day. We, of course, are obligated, it is our duty, actually, in a strange way, it is our joy, to remember the price paid by others for the sake of our present and our children's future. That act of remembrance always includes a poignant moment when we say so many have paid the ultimate price for our own present. During the First World War, an unprecedented degree of suffering. And people began to search much deeper into their soul. How do we make sense of the price that is paid by so many, an entire generation in some of our villages? And artists and poets found themselves writing with fresh poignancy. Paintings that began to equate the crucifixion of Christ with the sacrifice of a soldier's life. And the phrase from John chapter 15, "Greater love hath no man than he lay down his life for his friends," took on a fresh meaning in our own culture and our own generation. And so on an Armed Forces Day, it is absolutely right that you and I pause in the midst of all our working life and recognize that sacrifice. I guess every generation has sought to say there is something of a crisis in present time too. And so I want to be slightly hesitant about claiming a particular crisis for our own age. But it seems to me, when you think about the arenas of conflict across the globe today, there is no room for complacency at all. The Ukraine-Russian conflict, the Palestinian-Jewish conflict in Gaza and the West Bank, and many parts of sub-Saharan Africa, where it almost seems as though proxy wars are taking place. Communities displaced, in one nation alone, 9 million. And then if you travel across to Asia, Myanmar, now in the grip of quite a savage civil conflict. And I do want to say that I believe our own armed forces and those of our allies are vital particularly in terms of peacemaking and peace building. And I'm conscious today at this Armed Forces Day, many of the legal and medical teams that make up our armed forces are fully deployed. It is for our future that so many give their lives of service. And of course, civil defence equally. And I'm grateful for the role of our police services and our emergency services in this borough. I wonder if I might say a short prayer. And then I'm going to ask Councillor Alex to give a much more personal account and to read a poem. Grant us, O Lord, a vision of our borough, fair as she might be. A borough of justice, where none shall prey on others. A borough of plenty, where poverty shall cease. A borough in community, where success shall be founded on service, and honour given to worth alone. A borough of peace, where order shall not rest on force, but on mutual respect. Send us out, O God, from this place in the power of your Spirit, that we may live and work to your praise and glory. Amen. Councillor Alex.
Thank you, Bishop. Hello, everyone, and thank you for coming here to mark the opening of Armed Forces Week. It's an absolute pleasure to be able to do so, but before I do, I would like to talk about my experience of service. Like many of us who serve, I joined the British Army at a young age. On the 8th of January 2001, having not long turned 17, I walked through the gates of the Infantry Training Centre in Catterick, North Yorkshire. It was the first day of 13 years of service. My time in the forces saw me travel around the UK and the globe, from helping run joint exercises between the Army, Navy and RAF across Scotland to Simic House in Iraq, and on to my last official tour in Afghanistan, where I helped move and re-establish the UK's headquarters from Lashkar back to Camp Bastion prior to the eventual drawdown of troops. However, my time in the forces was not without its sadness. I've seen great people, friends of mine, sadly lose their lives. I've witnessed and felt the effects of time in service long after that chapter of my life ended. Yet it is a time that I will never forget. For those of us who joined the military, regardless of where we served or who we served with, it's a memory that will never fade from our minds. And just as service won't fade from the minds of those who have served, the UK government in 2006 wanted to ensure that the nation remembered the contribution of veterans by introducing what was then called Veterans' Day, which was originally marked on the 27th of June, the day after the anniversary of the first investiture of the Victoria Cross. In 2009, the name changed to Armed Forces Day, providing a focal point to raise awareness and appreciation for those who are currently on active duty as well. This day, as part of a wider Armed Forces Week, is marked up and down the country by ceremonies similar to the one here today, where we will shortly see the Armed Forces Day flag raised by the borough's mayor. And as the flag is raised, I ask that you pay tribute to those who have served or are continuing to do so across the globe. From combat operations to those who served diligently during the COVID-19 pandemic, and especially those involved in Operation Cabrit, the UK's contribution to the enhanced forward presence in Eastern Europe, especially considering the threats that we face at the borders of Europe with the ongoing war in Ukraine. Now, before I move on to the reading of a poem by Clive Sanders, we mustn't also forget Reserves Day, taking place on Wednesday to ensure that we pay tribute to those who serve in the reserve forces, recognising their invaluable contributions and sacrifices alongside their regular counterparts, whilst also working a day job. I'd now like to read the poem that stood out to me about service. It's a poem by Clive Sanders and it's called Unless You've Been a Soldier. Unless you've been a soldier, you won't understand the things we have seen and done in the service of our land. We have trained to live in combat, to cope with awful sights that shouldn't be seen by anyone and keep you awake at nights. We don't discuss the wounds we have to the body or the mind. We just put our hurts behind us and turn out memories to blind. We are proud to serve our country and remember those we lost. For the freedom that you have today, they paid the awful cost. Thank you.
Mr. Mayor, can I invite you to raise the Armed Forces Day flag?
Parade! Parade! Shot! Parade! Stand at east!
A word of thanks from you, Mr. Mayor, please.
Thank you, Bishop. I'd like to say a big thank you to everyone who has come here today for attending. This is an auspicious moment, and we need to have great respect for the services that people have given for us, for our protection, and for our country. So I really want to thank everybody, and the Bishop has already thanked you all and said everything about you. So I wouldn't go too much about, but I want to thank you for your services.
Now may God bless Basingstoke and Dean, make her people strong in faith, steadfast in hope, and generous in charity. Amen.